G'day folks, welcome back to another episode, Young Nomad style of course, where our motto is live free. I hope you're happy, healthy and well, wherever you are in the world. And as you can see, I'm sitting on my beloved CF500 Moto quad bike. So on this episode, I'm going to step you through the quad bike itself from when we bought it, fairly stock standard, what upgrades we've done to it both mechanically, but more importantly, what I've done to it to suit my far west coast fishing adventures. Unfortunately, this quad bike doesn't get out of the garage often enough. Predominantly it's used during the months of summer from November to February, but I've pretty much fully customized this quad bike to really suit my tailored needs when I go chasing the illustrious mullerways during the summer seasons and our far west coast adventures. So on this episode, I'll show you everything we've done to suit my needs. I get a lot of questions about the bike. I know a number of my friends are looking to get into the quads themselves to join us on the far west coast adventures we go on. So hopefully this sheds a little bit of insight from what I've learned and what we've done to make it really practical for my fishing needs. Don't get me wrong, this wasn't the bike that I started our far west coast adventures nearly 10 years ago. Seems like a distant memory, but you know, we started off with something very basic. I bought pretty much a cheap yin yang 250cc rear wheel quad bike. I think I paid about 400 bucks off of Gumtree at the time. It got me by for about 2 years, but I tell you what, it was a hard yakka 2 years, because for those that know, the far west coast has very soft sand, very boggy sand, and those two wheelers, when you get them bogged, they can be incredibly challenging to get them unbogged. You've literally got to get off the bike, manually lift it out. So this all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, you name it, I'll go through the specs shortly. The bike itself, it's quite a big bike. You're nearly 330 kilos, so safety is absolutely paramount, because if these things come on you, I tell you what, you're going to come off second best. It's about 2.1 metres in length, the bike itself, 1.1 metres in width and about 1.2 metres in height. So it's quite a large bike, generally won't fit on a 6x4 trailer. You probably want to be on a 6x5 trailer. So for those of you that are maybe looking to buy a quad and eventually a trailer, I would encourage, if you're going to get a custom trailer, toy hauler is always the best, but at minimum look for a 7x5 at minimum. 8x5 is probably best. Dual axle obviously, because you can get the bike on and obviously more stuff around, fuel, wood, whatnot. It's a single cylinder 4-stroke carburetor engine, and it pumps out about 32 horsepower. This one here is just done over 9,000 clicks. It's a 2012 model. What we've done mechanically, to be honest with you, very little. We've just given it some love. I bought this from the Gawler motorcycle centre on Main North Road, just on the outskirts of Gawler there. It was literally a trade-in. So this was a farm bike. The farmer upgraded, bought a brand new bike and traded this in. I got this for an absolute steal back then, because this was all before that pre-COVID stuff. I've owned this probably for about 5 years now, I reckon. Yeah, 5 years, about that. But anyway, I picked it up for 1,500 bucks, go figure. Reason being, the Gawler motorcycle centre guy said, look, I just want what I paid for trading price, which was 1,500 bucks. And I thought, that's a steal, let's take it. Because these things now, to try and get in the COVID tax world we live in, you're paying upwards of 4 to 5 grand, 5 grand north of. So very fortunate I got it at the right time. What we've pretty much done mechanically, this thing has not missed a beat, okay? But all we've done is just given it a little bit of love on the main things that commonly wear over time on any quad bike, motorbike. So big shout out to my old man, Foss again, who's an absolute master when it comes to working on bikes. He used to strip them and rebuild them from the ground up as a kid, and his knowledge is irreplaceable. So thanks for all your help. Big shout out to you, Foss. So what we've just done, just some basics mechanically. We've put in a new air filter, we've put in a new fuel pump, new thermostat, spark plug, replaced the CDI, and I've put on some new electrical gear, which includes an LED bar. So let's jump into the bike. I'm going to show you around, and sit tight. At the end of once I've showed you what the quad bike involves, I'm going to show you what gear I use to fish the far west coast. You can probably see some of it behind me on the quad right now. So I'm going to share with you over my years of experience what I've learnt, what I've changed, what I've done differently, and what works for me now. So kick back, relax, let's show you around the bike. Yoo. start from the front, work our way to the back, but we'll look from top to bottom as well. And once we get to the back, I'll show you the upgrades we've done there, but I'll show you more importantly what we house, what we carry, and what setups we have for our fishing adventures. But let's start from the front. So as you can see, I've got an LED light bar. I think it's about a 13 or 14 inch. We do a fair bit of night fishing when we go to the far west coast, particularly if it's a nice, balmy, warm, northerly night, wind coming off the land, and if there's big tidal movements into the wee hours of the morning, we'll definitely fish it. So this LED bar just makes sure we get home safe and well. The lighting on this low range and low beam and high beam, really good lighting, standard headlights on there. You can see here I've got a 3,000 pound Dyna winch, which is just an eBay special. Inexpensive, about 180 bucks. Haven't had to use it yet, touch wood, but always good to be safe. As you can see, original radiator, liquid cooling as well. One thing that I make sure I absolutely do, this thing gets a really good wash every time we come back from a trip, but I run a lot of fresh water through the elements of the radiator when we get back, just to push out any sand particles that might get trapped in there. But as you can see, as an original radiator and a bike that's 2012, nearly 10 years old now, there's really little rust. There's a little bit on the bar here, but we'll take care of that. But pretty much what I did when I bought the bike, we resprayed it with high gloss rust guard paint from top to bottom, and then we fish oiled it as well. In terms of suspension, as you can see there, we've got front and rear double wishbone independent suspension, coil spring oil damp shock absorber. You've got braking on the front is double disc and single disc on the back. Put a bit of a bash plate on the front there, as you can see. Some of the bash plate from the original factory bike when it came out is missing, but look, it's predominantly lives its life on sand, so just having that one bash plate on the front's enough. Original tyres, not too bad a nick. Probably going to be due in the next year or two. Here we've just put on a chopping board from Bunnings, literally. Bought the board, jigsawed it into shape, zippy tied it on, because if I want to be able to take it off to give it a good clean, it's just easy to cut the zippy ties and then re-zippy tie them on. And then obviously we've just stained it just to make it nice and smooth and give it that dark wood finish. Really handy, obviously, when we get a good sized fish that we want to keep, good place to fillet it up. Always be branding. Make sure you subscribe and hit that bell for all your notifications. Drop in the comments any questions you've got, guys, about the bike. I'd love to hear from you, but really appreciate the support with sharing it with any friends or family that you've got. Now you can see here's our gear mechanism. So we've got low range up the top, high range, neutral, reverse, and park. So this bike, you can have the option of two-wheel or all-wheel drive. So you can see here we've got a little switch that locks it into four-wheel drive or two-wheel drive. Now the advantage with that really is two-wheel drive is a lot more economical. So if I'm on hard sand, I'll whack it into two-wheel drive just because I'll conserve fuel and use less. Obviously when it gets soft and boggy, straight into four-wheel drive. It does have center diff lock as well, so if you get into a real pickle, not only do you have the winch, but we do have diff lock as well. You can see here, you've got your handbrake up here and then foot brake on the other side, which I'll get to in a moment. This here is just all your lighting, start, hazards, horn and choke obviously as well. And we've got the switch in and out for the winch on the front. As I said, it's done about 9,000 Ks this bike, but it's been really well looked after. We've got an 18 litre fuel tank, so plenty of juice. The key is electric start. Now, just a little tip here, lanyard, because if you're going over corrugation, as we often do, bumps, whatnot, if the key comes out for whatever reason, you've still got it safe and secured onto the bike. I'll jump around to the other side. So we've got just a little 12 volt plug here. Here's our LED switch that we mounted for the bar, a little bit of a pocket, and then you've got the rear brake as well, foot brake there as well. Cup holder for the rear housing of soft drinks when far west coast, and then obviously under here you've got the air filter, battery. Here I just keep some spare hoses as well, but all your electrics run in there. There's a little bit of a storage compartment in there. That's not wired up at the moment because I disconnect it when it's sitting in the garage and just put it on there when I fire it up to bring it outside. So yeah, that's that. Now also it does have a pull start, so if there's any fault or errors, issues with the electric start, we can pull start this one as well, which is just handy. If whatever reason electrics decide not to work. So as you can see, there's a little bit of a pull start there. All right, let's jump into the rear of the bike. So again, not standard. I've actually extended the back here just to give me more length. So that 2.1 meters that I said at the beginning of the video, the width, length of the bike is for me now probably about 2.3, 2.4. The reason why, so I can fit these puppies on, get some rod holders on, which I'll show you in a moment shortly. Again, we've just got some board that we've jigsawed up to shape, to suit, to size. We've stained that, zippy tied that on again. So all of this can be lifted off at any point. These boxes I bought from Bunning. They weren't too cheap. I think they're about $100, 70 to $100, something like that. But they are really good boxes. They're nice and sturdy, hard case. They've got a rubber seal here, so they're fully waterproof, fully sandproof. They've got really good lockdown mechanisms as well. You got to watch these things. If they hit your finger, you know about it. This one here, folks, is my fishing tackle box. So one of the things I wanted to set the bike up, because when I first started fishing the far west coast, I used to carry everything, my tackle bag on the back, a bait esky on the front, and everything. I had, you know, elastic lackey bands to tie everything down galore. You'd used to have to buy a full pack of lackey bands almost every trip, and by the time your trip was done, you'd come back and you'd just about busted or lost them all. So I wanted everything that could be hard mounted. So if I wanted to get on the bike really quick and early for a session, everything's good to go. It takes me a few minutes just to maybe grab some bait, some food and some drinks, and we're underway. So in this tackle box, first and foremost, what's important for those fishing Yalata community these days is that you must have a permit on you at all times, both in your car and on your quad bike. So I always print my permits off before we go to make sure we've got them available, so that if the rangers come by, we can show them that we're all booked and everything's above board. I've got some light split shot weights and sliding sinkers here that I carry as well, just for my lighter fishing that we do in the lagoon or off the rocks. That includes my smaller little tackle box there, which has got my smaller hooks for whiting, for brim, for flatties, for trevally and so forth. And that's good to go for my lighter gear. Now getting into the heavier stuff, so this one here carries all my hooks, so 8-0s, 10-0s through to 4-0s. Bait mate, I'm always carrying heaps of spare bait mate, because this stuff has a way of just going missing all the time. You put it in your pocket, you know, a wave hits you, whatever. So I carry generally 3 or 4 of these. Have some spare star sinkers in here as well. But I absolutely love these. So again, the boys from sports fishing scene stock these, and these are just your little glow sticks for when you're fishing at night. The reason I love these, you can get them in 2 different colors, green and red. I prefer red, just stands out, I think, a little bit more. But pretty much they're battery powered. So they come with a little battery. As you can see, this one's actually got one in there. It'll be flat now. But you can take that little battery cylinder out, okay? That's what it looks like. So these are replaceable, and you can buy them at Sports Fishing Scene for a couple of bucks, and it's simply just clip them in, screw in, and it engages the light. Now, as I said, this one's flat, so it's not going to come on. Okay, and then that essentially just slides into your rod housing clip. All right, and then you can clip it onto the top of your rod, and you've got 2 different sizes, a slightly thicker one there for the bigger rods, and then a thinner one for the smaller rods. Absolutely love these. These last forever, and the brightness that they put out, so much better. I used to use these light sticks, you know, the ones that you crack. They're great, but I just found they were hit and miss. Sometimes you'd get a dud one, wouldn't work, and by the next day, they were pretty much almost redundant, no good. Whereas these ones, they just keep going. Swivels as well. We've got some heavy duty snap swivels, sliding swivels, all in there. Next one is my lure box. So I carry a different range of hard body lures from 45 grams right up to 80 grams for the big salmon that are known on the far west coast. You can quite comfortably get 12 to 14 pound salmon over that way. Then I also carry a range of soft body plastics for flatties along the sand flats through to trevally in the lagoon, you name it. But I have a huge arrangement of those from single hook to triple hooks as well, so we mix it up. So always carrying hard and soft body lures. And then you've got your weights as well. So we carry predominantly 170 gram sand anchors, grappling anchors. This one's probably my favorite because the high tensile is really strong on this one. This one, once it gets in, it doesn't move, which is great for, you know, bigger swell days. You know, predominantly, it's fairly consistently gets 2 meters plus on the far west coast, so that works quite well. I do like to carry larger and smaller star anchors as well, because one of our favourite sliding mulloway rigs works really well. We probably have better success with star sinkers than we do the anchors, and as much as possible when the conditions allow, we'll fish with star sinker, because we've just find, I don't know if the bait just flows more freely, sitting on the edge of the gutter, you know, when you've got a sliding rig with your star sinker to your ganging hooks. I think when that just sits on the edge of the gutter, it just allows that bait just to flow on the edge of the gutter a little bit more freely, which is predominantly where the mulloway generally scoot along, that sort of inner inside edge of the gutter where it starts to drop away. Hot little tip there, guys. I see a lot of people that cast too far. One of my good mates, the legend himself, Gareth Lilly, he's caught mulloways in real close to shore with a star running sinker, as have I. And sometimes people overcast the mark. So really what you're wanting to do is just get in the center of the gutter if you're using your big sand anchors. But if you're using lighter gear, just casting onto the edge of the gutter on the inner side of it. My brother one trip literally had car problems. He was about 2 days delayed because of his car problems. Finally got there, set up camp, came and joined us. First cast, woefuled, dusted out the cobwebs, didn't even go too far. He couldn't be stuffed. He was that buggered and disheartened from all the car problems. Anyway, sat the rod up. We'd been fishing the same hole for about 5-6 hours this day. Within 5 minutes of him setting his rod, bang, 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 bang. Just shows you the mulloway, we're probably just sitting in close and we're overcasting the mark. So just reading the play when you're fishing conditions for mulloway. The all-important bragging mat, this one here, Daiwa, 1.4 meters, I think it measures, or 1.3. Most bragging mats, measuring mats, are around 1 meter. Obviously, we love to chase the over meter mark, so we got the bigger mat there as well. Leader line, absolutely. Got abundance of this. So mono versus braid. Well, that's just personal preference and choice. Myself, I love braid because I just get more on the spool. So most spools on the bigger gear that I'm using, my 8,000 reels, will house anywhere between 400 and 450 meters of line quite comfortably. I like braid because more sensitive on the feel, but also casting in windier conditions, I find I get more distance. The downside of that some people will object to is that it's not as strong if you do come up against a reef and a bit of abrasion and rubbing. Obviously mono will be a little bit better. Far west coast is really common for reef. But yeah, just personal choice. My reels are all geared up for braid, but absolutely mono shock leaders. So on my big reels, which I'll show you in a moment, I'm running 50-pound braid. Then I run a 50-pound mono leader, 50 to 60-pound mono leader. I run that shock leader for about 6 meters into an FG knot from the mono to the braid. FG, the best knot every fisherman knows. Obviously to the hooks though, I'll generally run 80 to 100 pound to my ganging hooks, just because the far west coast is commonly known for a lot of sharks, particularly the bronzies. So you need that thicker diameter to your hooks. If you do get onto a bronzy, you've just got a bit more of a better chance. I do carry these Daiwa gloves as well. Now, I'm not sponsored by Daiwa by any means, but I do love quality gear. Daiwa, Shimano, probably my favorite gear. Daiwa, if you're watching this, reach out. I'd love to have a chat to you. But look, you know, some people go out and spend money on nights out, partying and whatever else. Each to their own. Me, I love fishing, camping, adventuring, as you guys know. So where my money goes, that I work hard for, is on the gear that I love, doing what I love doing most. These gloves, Daiwa, I don't use these when I'm fishing or spinning, which you can do. I actually just use them for UV protection, because you're on the bike so often with your hands facing upwards. Sometimes I'll be sitting on this thing for 13, 14-hour sessions a day for one hit, one chance, one opportunity. That's the commitment you've got to put into this stuff. So that just helps with a bit of UV protection. Also, if you're scooting along at speeds in the backtracks of Yalata, a lot of stones flick up and sticks, it just gives your hands protection. One of the things that really wears over time, because everything dries out on the far west coast because of heat and wind your hands start to get really sore. So this just helps, particularly us. We go for 8 to 10 days at a time. We're off grid. So the more we can make ourselves comfortable and relaxed, the easier it is to see out the entire trip. Speaking of UV protection, you can see here I've just got an umbrella that I bought from Bunnings, so that just opens up, about 50 bucks that one, and I can sit under here, nice, comfortable, relax. Bluetooth speaker, tunes going, soft drink in the ready, and you'll see in a moment what we carry in that box as well. The big hit rod holder, belt rod holder. Haven't had to use it yet, guys, but it's always better to be prepared because you never know. One day, I hope, one day we get onto that 80 or 100 pound mulloway. They're out there. They've been known to be caught. They've been known to be seen. So yeah, that's my tackle box on this side. I'll just put all this back in. Again, if you've got any questions on this stuff, guys, just drop it in the comments. I'm always replying back to anyone who messages me through our social channels. Now, in the middle here, I've got the bait esky, alrighty. Does carry my cold cans of drink, Pepsi Max, Solo, whatever else, but predominantly carries bait. Now, keeping bait fresh is so paramount to the success of your fishing story, success to your fishing travels on the far west coast. We freeze our baits, hard freeze them before we go. We have a 100 litre Waco freezer that we all just freeze it, put all our bait in there. We bag it up, so we only take 1 bag per day of what we need. So we generally put in there 5 sauries and maybe 3 squid. 1 bag, zippy tied, not zippy tied, what do you call it, those plastic bags that, you get my drift anyway, they sort of clip close. We just grab 1 bag per day. That's how we prep our bait before we go. So it's really quick and easy. You can see in here, I've just got this bubble sort of protective cooling bag. Reason being, my frozen brick goes in there, and in here it just lasts extra longer with it being inside the esky as well. Jumping over this side. So this one here, guys, okay, so jumping over this side, this box here is just kind of a spare box. So I'll put in here my butane gas cooker. So sometimes we'll have 2-minute noodle soup, noodles on the beach, soup, coffee. We carry coffee sachets and a little pop up and pop down kettle. Spare reels. So in here I carry my 5000 Stratic reel. That predominantly goes on my 10-footer Daiwa sensor rod for when I'm spinning for salmon. That's my favourite rig for spinning, to be honest with you. This Stratic, beautiful to cast with. 20-pound braid to 40-pound shock leader on the 10-foot sensor, cast an absolute mile. We carry in here spare, again, we don't need many of these, but this is just your bungee cords, obviously. This one I just use to wrap around the reels on the back and clip it onto the bike, just to stop the rods from bouncing out of the rod holders. And then in here I've also got just spare parts as well for the bike. In here, plugs, spanners, you name it. And this obviously carries all my GoPro gear that you're watching me on now as well. All the camera gear sits in here. All right, so now to the back of the quad bike. I've got rod holders here that I'll show you shortly that hold both our rod holders when we're fishing on the beach to actually physically holding our rods when we're commuting on the quad bike itself. So firstly, I'll start with the rod holders. Very straightforward, just PVC piping that I've cut to length on about a 1 metre star picket, bolted in, wash it in, nice and firm. That's not going anywhere. High vis tape, yes. Safety is very important when we do remote trips. This is great just so people can identify if you're sitting there on the beach, particularly if you're fishing with your mates. You know, if you flash a head torch down the beach, you can still see they're there. But also if you're fishing somewhere like 42 Mile, Tea Tree Crossing, where people do some incredibly excessive speed along that beach, just they can see you if you're out there fishing at night. I've attached on here just some bait rags as well, because as I said, 8 to 10 days off grid, your hands get quite oily and stinky. So this just helps wipe your hands after every cast to help keep your gear clean as well. I've got 2 of these, I'll point out as well. This is the smaller one. That one's the bigger rod holder, because this one houses my 12-footer. And the bigger rod holder houses my 13-footer. Let's go through those rigs now. So this one here is just my light gear rod set up for, again, flicking for flatties, whiting, trevally, smaller salmon as well. This one's a Daiwa in feet rod. It's just 6.661 feet in length, about 2 to 10 grams weight. So it's quite light, but I love it. It's a one piece. This is a lot of fun when you get even squid on, but whiting, flathead, absolutely. Now, I'll just point out all my reels when I travel on quad have Shimano reel covers. These are about 15 bucks. They just save your gear because the amount of dust, dirt, sand that gets into your gear after 8-10 days off grid is incredible. Whilst we have limitations on how much fresh water we have when we're away, I always just give these a little bit of a rinse once we eventually do get back to camp each day. So the reel here itself, just a light little, this is a Daiwa Tierra 2000 model, and I've got a 3000 model as well. Again, it's got 20-pound fins braid on it, and then to 20 pounds shock leader on the light gear. I'll just put this one down. All right, now getting into the big, hardy, meaty stuff. This one here is my favorite combo setup. You've got the 13-footer Daiwa sensor. Absolutely love the sensors, as I mentioned previously. My favorite spinning one is the 10-footer with the Stratic 5000 on it. This is my favorite Mulloway rod. The weight rating on this is 10 to 20 kilos or 90 to 100 grams. This has just got phenomenal guts and really still light and easy to cast. So the reel itself, my beautiful wife bought me as our wedding present before we got married, is the 8000 Daiwa Saltus. So again, I've got 50-pound braid on that one to a 60-pound shock leader. I'll just put that one there. The other big rod that I use, so generally when I fish for Mulloway's far west coast, I'll have two big rod setups, the Daiwa and then the Zing Zamaki. A great Australian product. This is a 12-footer, 20 to 40-pound cast, 3 to 6 ounce. This one's a two-piece, as is the Daiwa sensor. But yeah, this is a beautiful rod. Almost as close to being as favourite as this sensor of mine. And on here, we're just running, again, just a pretty straightforward Penn Spin Fisher, 8500 reel. This one here, it's cheaper, but I tell you what, these pens, good value for money and plenty of guts in them, and you can't go past them. So that's the reel setups for both and the rod setups for both. I'll just take you out the back here and just show you how we've extended the bar for the rod holders themselves and what the rod holders are themselves as well. All right, folks, so now we're at the back of the bike. So I'm just gonna show you what we've done with the extension of the rear and then obviously the rod holder. So let's get in underneath and have a look at all the good stuff. So first and foremost, as you can see, these rod holders I've just got from an irrigation shop at Virginia, I believe, and it's just 50mm poly, so it's quite thick. But what's really good about it, as you can see here, I've etched out the reel holders as well, so my reel handles fit in there just quite nicely, so it stops them from spinning around and smashing up against each other, and we've just grinded that out. But you can see underneath lots of reflective taping, as I said, for security. So we've got safety, I should say, sorry. So we've got side-on reflective tape on both boxes. Then we've got the red for the rear, so anyone coming up behind us. Little bit here as well. But you can see here, I'm missing one tail light. Just haven't bothered upgrading that. But you can see it's just nice and glossy underneath, no rust. But this is where I've extended the bar. So we've just put in some tubing, okay, that we've slotted in from where we cut it, from the original bar. Then we've welded it on, and then we've mounted it on the back here as well. So we've got some stabilizers that we've mounted to the original frame and chassis of the bike as well. And then we've got a bit of tubing here as well that just stops it from flexing and bouncing around or anything like that, so it's nice and secure. Got a tow ball hitch, not that I've ever used that. Bit of a pain in the ass, that often bottoms out, unfortunately, when you're going up and down certain bouncy corrugation areas, but that's really the rear. And yeah, it does us well. 2 rod holders, 2 big rods and a little rod, and it's the perfect combo. Absolutely love this thing. All right, legends, thanks for joining us again on another episode, Young Nomad Style. Hope you've enjoyed this little edition on the tour of our CF Moto 500 quad bike, from buying it original to where we've evolved it today. As I said, if you've got any comments on the quad, feel free to drop them below. I'll absolutely get back to you. But as always, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell for your weekly notification, and feel free to share the love far and wide. But sit tight. Next week, we're going to take in another little adventure. We're headed over to the York Peninsula, bottom of the York Peninsula, Marion Bay, for 4 nights. We're staying in the local caravan park, so we'll show you Marion Bay Caravan Park. We'll give that a bit of a review and what to see and do there. We'll obviously head into Innes National Park as well. Some great spots that I have some wonderful memories of, both fishing, surfing, and just sightseeing. The wildlife over there is just really stunning to see, and at this time of year it should be really picturesque, and hopefully weather prevailing. It's looking a bit touch and go at the moment. Strong northwesterly winds coming up, which isn't too bad over there. It's offshore, but it's going to come down to the swell. But if all things fall our way, we'll get the tinny off the Land Cruiser, hopefully wet a line and get onto some fishing action for you. But again, thanks for joining us on this episode, and as always, make sure you live free, the Young Nomad style. Bye for now.